the limits have all fallen. We're stepping out the sides of boxes us once containing. And though I fail to see the endless possibilities, they're lost in galaxies of what your eyes see clearly. You whisper softly, you whisper to me, oh, we will transcend space and time. Oh, between planets and the skies. Oh, we'll transcend space and time. Oh, between planets and the skies. Thank you. So that was Galaxies. Thank you. So yeah, this next song I'm gonna do a bit more relaxed. This one is called Do You Know? And again, it's just about just life really, and just the ups and downs of life, and just knowing that, you know, eventually everything will work out fine. So even with stuff like this, like the whole Black Lives Matter thing, it's just kind of knowing that there will be some kind of change, and it started and it's really uneasy, very uncomfortable, but you know, some good things from it will grow. I believe that, to be fair. So yeah, and it's something that I hope to see, and through obviously these conversations and things that are happening, we'll see that. So this is just a little encouragement, and for you personally, just if you've been having a really interesting quarantine like I have, just knowing that eventually things will be cool, things will be good, and it's just life that we have seasons. So this is called Do You Know? Today I don't mind the rain hitting my window, 'cause they're different drops from yesterday, and a different sea from here today will grow. Ooh, but there are days when everything seems the same. Oh, so don't you wait until you get hold of your game. Do you know, 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 do you know what is meant to be will be? Do you know, 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 in time, yeah, you will see. You may find it difficult, but it's just the starting point. These things get easier in time. Ooh, 'cause before the harvest comes, you gotta do the sum. First time to enjoy, and then enjoy. But there are days when you don't see a thing. Oh, so don't you wait until you get hold of the game. Do you know, 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 do you know what is meant to be will be? Do you know, 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 do you know in time, yeah, you will see. Yeah, there are days when everything seems the same. Oh, oh, so don't you wait until you get hold of your game. Do you know what it's meant to be will be? Do you know? Do you know? Do you know? Thank you. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed that.
Thank you so much, MariaM. Appreciate that. And thank you, Tshaka, for suggesting that we all put 111 as the when we're applauding and showing our appreciation. I think that's quite a good way. And clapping, I mean, clicking our fingers or clapping. Also, there's like a reaction like emoji thing at the bottom. So you can also do that and the person can see it. So that's lovely. Our second artist of the evening is Zena Edwards. Zena was raised in Tottenham, has become known as one of the most unique voices of performance poetry to come out of London. As a poet, Zena has traveled extensively around the UK, the US, Africa, and Europe, collaborating with artists such as Nigerian choreographer Kudus Onyeku and award-winning visual artist Thesta Gates. She has toured supporting living legends Hugh Masekela, The Last Poets, and Baba Mal. She's known for her polemic voice, speaking on panels for climate change and creative championing for equality and equitable rights. Zena is also creative director of VID, or VID, an umbrella creative arts and activism company, and she is a core project developer of Voices That Shake, Youth, Race, Media, Power Arts project. And it's an interesting story about when I first discovered Zena's work, was probably around, I think, over 10 years ago. My friend Nahanawan, who's in the call at the moment, was the one that bought me a ticket for one of her events. And I think it was in East London somewhere, maybe Brick Lane. And I was completely blown away by her performance. And yeah, and being somebody who champions social activism, I felt that, you know, that she would be great on this for this event. So without further ado, Zena, if you could take it away, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Hi. So I thought I would start today this reading with a poem that I wrote, kind of in tribute to a young man called William Kamkwamba. He had a film made about him. He was the boy who harnessed the wind. I don't know if anybody had seen that, read the book or seen the movie. Yes, it's a great film with Chiwetel Ejiofor. It was one of his first directed pieces. He produced and directed the film. And basically, if you don't know the story of William, he basically built a windmill from, he was obsessed with energy. That's why it's on Netflix. He was obsessed with energy. And he built a windmill from his father's bicycle, but he had to beg for this windmill. He had to beg for this bicycle because it was the only thing that his dad used to get to and from work. But he had an idea of building this windmill to irrigate water to his village because there was a famine that was coming, was an onset of a famine, and he managed to build this windmill. And I watched him give a TED talk, and he was young and he was extremely nervous, and he couldn't understand why people were laughing at certain things that he was saying, because all he knew was that he was building this thing that saved his community's life. And it kind of got me thinking about that whole idea of technology and how the human body and the human will is a technology in its own right. And out of necessity. Was it necessity is the mother of innovation, right? So I kind of decided I was going to write this poem based on this young man's, inspired by this young man's life and the whole idea of the human spirit under pressure and what we can do, what we are capable of. This body, lone, separate, but knowing myself to be connected to 7 billion parts of humanity, multiply this by 100 billion neurons of the average brain, what can I not know? when all exists in the ever-present now, and in the past belonging to the future, everything at once in the space between a second's talk from its tick, and every generation should know this. Self-belief releases the future from between the pages, scripted and well-thumbed by scholars deemed the last empire's prime sages, men who squander the wealth of our home, hound the underclass and swear their civilization of wizards and patriarchs brought all technology, when in reality it was a dark enlightenment that murdered for gems and portions of the terra firma fertile, while the poor stayed clean in squalor mass industry created, blood let guilty because their poverty was inherited, and that story lives on. But my eyes record and decipher the beauty and the horror of this frail existence, wrapped in the weight of flesh. I cite codes that bar the mind, intoxicated with shopping aisles of stuff that we equate as making or breaking the very makeup of us, as if in our naked vulnerability, we are not enough. This is the heist of the century. A deception of moonlight's shadow sent to scare us tough, to bury our authentic selves blind to trust, as if love is a fathomless trough from where we bottom feed, disappointed and told lies of how some are appointed more equal inside the matrix. So when we buy and consume by the light of a lunar trick, while these lunatics feed the belly of their insatiable pride, we push on in the half-light of brand headlights, our bodies, vehicles of source energy, just spellbound within the limits of toys made for grown-ups and jails for the imagination of children. I am not considered one of the chosen ones. I am thrown scraps of aid, TED Talks made about my need. My father and my father's father born in the derelict wake of greed. I am quota infused to their brain institute with an ambition to win the accolades, squeezed in the tightest fists of a myopic elite who equate their war with peace. And hands that grip whips and pens that police borders of my dreams and ancestral lands, both strike across the back of my name to make me bow under this oppressor's game. But I am everyone's neighbor. I am the boy in the low-slung tracksuit whose eyes are chained to the ground, the girl whose jaw chews on its own tongue, the mother whose knuckles strain white, carrying her home on her back, and the man whose cheeks crack with the drought of smiles in his wallet. I am refugee and asylum seeker. I am fast food server, sex worker, shelf packer, Uber driver, nurse, child carer, artist, social worker, lorry driver. I am the one who carries the deceased to the morgue, and the birth doula who champions life into the world. I am also home to handheld devices, chips. I'm also home to handheld devices ignited by chips gouged violently by the poorest hands from the earth. I am poverty's complex complicity, and I know this vile riddle has to end. It has an end. This I am is the science of effect relative to cause. So there must be a cause ultimate. If this is so, then I sign up to her school and feel my connection to the center of the earth's labyrinth before colonizers quested to make her their bitch. She will not stand for this. She made us in her image. She is no slave. She is tyranny and home. My ear to her ground, I hear secrets in the dust on my cheek. Hair rooting as antenna, I hear reverberations, ruminations about us, her philosopher's stone, her opus magnus, us who can turn war scars on the heart into gold. And I dream I fall into her magic and feel the milk of her finest silt skin on my skin, dreaming of returning to water, each drop with genius within. I melt into mineral, iron fleck, porcelain clay and saltpeter. I am the spark catcher, the speed vessel, seed vessel of the flame. I, human, pull the edges of despair together and find tin cans, a bicycle wheel, plastic sheeting, empty water bottles, bra underwire and parcel string. I dream of planting spinning flowers to capture the wind. I live in the frontal lobe of a new Eden. This replenished garden painted the colors of my determination, and I have clever hands. I may be poor, born on the wrong side of the digital divide, but I have clever hands. I am no victim or poverty statistic. I am the technology of necessity. I am the not and the am. I am imagination and the manifested. I am revolution. I am a soldier who marches on a stomach full of simple bread, a stomach lined with the comforting fat of faith. I am authority on everyday resistance because I know progress. I know how to make, and I create every day to remind myself I am creatrix. Thank you, thank you. So that poem was actually part of a commission to be working with the London School of Economics with their students. So I actually made a film to go with this, and I can include the link in the chat so you can take a look at that a bit later. I feel like I'm going to do a song now. I have got, how long do I have? I just need to be told. I have time. Okay. So I'm going to do a song now, which originally was written by a lady called Diane Reeves, a jazz vocalist, incredible storyteller called Diane Reeves. Do check it out. The song's called Endangered Species. And the song was originally written for women of color who experience domestic violence. And because I do a lot of environmental and climate activist work, I thought, actually, we're kind of committing domestic violence on our own home. When you think about how violent we are to the planet, with fracking, I think has got to be the worst thing. It's almost like prematurely inducing birth. There's just something really nasty about that and the way that it creates earthquakes across the planet. But also the fact that it is people from the global south, people from Black and brown communities who are impacted mostly by this, and the global north is who is benefiting from most of the spoils, if you like, of this fracking work. So I took the lyrics of the chorus of Endangered Species, and then I kind of twisted up the remixed, should we say, not twisted, remixed the verses. So here we go. I am an endangered species, but I sing no victim song. I am human and I am an artist, and I know where my voice belongs. I said I am an endangered species, but I sing no victim song. I am human, I am an artist, and I know where my voice belongs. I am here, I exist. I shake my fist with these words from my lips. My mind is set and my body is strong. I sing of rebirth, no victim song. No, 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 no. no, cause I am an endangered species, but I sing no victim song. I am human, I am an artist, and I know where my voice belongs. I said I am an endangered species, but I sing no victim song. I am human, I am an artist, and I know where my voice belongs. The system is blind, it binds my feet to silence my skin, no freedom of speech. I work all day so I can find peace. States of violence at a peak. Na 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 na. Cause nature is life, this earth has got rights. We'll fight for her freedom all of my life. The road is long, but the struggle is strong. No justice, no peace, our victory song. Na 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 na. Now said I am an endangered species, but I sing no victim song. I am human, I am an artist, and I know where my voice belongs. I said I am an endangered species, but I sing no victim song. I am human, I am an artist, and I know where my voice belongs. Yes, I know where my heart belongs, and I know where my body belongs, and I know where my soul belongs, cause I know where my mind belongs. Yes, I know where my voice belongs. Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zena.
No problem. All right.
Thank you. That was really beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next artist of the evening is Inua Ellams. He was born in Nigeria. He's a poet, playwright, known for his, I would say, like Sold Out, Barbershop Chronicles, Half God of Rainfall, performer. He's a graphic artist and designer, founder of the Midnight Run, an arts-filled nighttime urban walking experience, the Rhythm and Poetry, which is the Rap Party, where he celebrates poetry, hip-hop, poetry, film, and hack. Across his work, identity, displacement, and destiny are recurring themes in which he also tries to mix the old with the new, traditional West African aura of storytelling with contemporary poetics, paint with pixel, texture with vector. His books are published by Fliptie, Akashic, Nine Arches, and Oberon. I don't think Inua needs much of an introduction. I think he's quite a famous poet and playwright. So I'll hand it over to you, Inua. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, shout out to Zena for that beautiful poem and beautiful song. And she talked about borders, which is sort of the central word to the various poems I'm going to read to you now. I'm an immigrant, and I write a lot about the immigrant experience. And these are 3 poems. The first 2 are much shorter, and there's a longer one to finish off. I have a book coming out called The Actual, comes out in October. You can pre-order it from Amazon. I can stick the link in here. But the full title is The Actual Fuck. And all the poems begin with the word. So the 2 poems I'm going to read are from The Actual Fuck. And the first poem is called Fuck Border Guards. And the second is called Fuck Borders. Short poems. Fuck border guards. Heavy booted and uniformed, the armed who manned the borders of narrative and myth, who cast the war-torn and hungry as vermin, will say he reached too far, dared dream broader than his wings, broader than his country could carry, than wings could carry. That chant of his, that song of light was foreign, sounded like a battle cry, too much like jihad. Icarus's whole flight was ill-advised. That father should have known better. Nothing can be done, they say, nothing as he plunged. Fuck border guards. And this is the accompanying poem to that. It's called Fuck Borders. The travelers of woods and waters who left by foot and paddle, who formed horse and saddle, rudder and sail, forged steam and engine and reached the holy grail of flight. So instinctive was collective strive to boldly go and yet go further. They went off-world, zoomed off-planet. The forest spirit child in them, who saw no borders in the sky, the winged wandering wild within, is who we have ever been. In time, we'll wake to see the lines, these thin boundaries we have drawn as utter folly, and call out who and why and when and how the fuck. And the last few poems I'm gonna read sort of takes those themes and expands them. So what I was trying to do is remix the myth of Icarus and talk about immigration. And this does that to a greater extent. This is the poem I wrote. It's a remix of Icarus, and oh my God, where is it? Hold on one second. Just find it on my thingamajig. Icarus. Oh my God, where is it? Oh, there it is. Give me 1 second. There it is. Okay, great. So this is just a description of what I was trying to do here. The myth of Icarus in its simplest moralization is about the dangers of hubris. In the original story, Icarus is the son of a master craftsman, Daedalus. The attempt to escape from the island of Crete with wings Daedalus had constructed from feathers and wax. Daedalus warns Icarus of complacency and arrogance, asking him not to fly too low that the sea's dampness might clog his wings, or too high that the sun's heat might melt them. Icarus ignores his father's instructions and flies too close to the sun. When the wax in his wing melts, he tumbles out of the sky and falls into the sea, where he drowns. I grew up on comic books where stories of flight left an indelible mark on me. I'd see Iron Man, Storm, Angel, and Magneto take to the skies and wish I could be amongst their numbers. Of all the heroes, of all their distinct and complicated personalities, Spider-Man, also known as Peter Parker, felt like the closest to me. Like him, I was a bespectacled nerd, a creative child, a maker of things. When I pored over the various editions of his epic sagas, the morals and lessons that underpin his adventures came from his father figure, Uncle Ben. He warned Peter, with great power comes great responsibility. Peter, as an inventor, was both Daedalus and Icarus, maker of web shooters, testing them out, learning the repercussions of flying too close to the sun, yet always saving himself and those around him before the sea could claim their lives. Spider-Man's spirit, his humor and wit had a striking similarity with Anansi, a figure from West African folklore who is half spider, half man. Marvel, who created the figure of Spider-Man, went as far as folding Anansi into the Marvel universe, ascribing to him the mantle of the first Spider-Man. Anansi is also said to be the keeper of all stories, and all of this was playing on my mind when I began working on my interpretation. I left Nigeria in 1996 and spent the next 15 years shuffling between Dublin and London, fighting for the right to live and work in Europe in an endless cycle of immigration battles against the incompetent British Home Office. Though my battles continue, all I've suffered pales in comparison to the plight of other immigrants trapped in refugee camps in Sudan, abandoned in the Sahara Desert as they tried to reach Libya, left floating in lifeboats on the Mediterranean, and stranded on islands off the coast of Italy. I wanted to write an adaptation that honored their journey. I wondered who would be stranded in today's world, who would need to fly, what would stop them, what would push them towards the skies. I found clear answers: refugees, those who cannot cross water, litigation and law, death beneath the water surface. The biggest challenge for me was the moral element. I didn't want to debate whether or not refugees had a right to the pursuit of happiness. As an immigrant, it is difficult to be objective, to see this from both sides. I didn't want to wave a finger at my readers. Instead, I wanted to put a beating heart at the center of the story and explain the complicated world around her. Icarus became the rusty-haired, mischievous girl called Ikenna, and this is her story. Icarus. The refugee camp was a battered rainbow of humanity, each tent a failing, flailing nation's flag weighed down by stones. The wind would lift sand grains and dust wisps off the central tent and blow them down the sandy paths to the edge of the island, the beach, where the refugees would gather to look across the deep blue waters through clouds drifting like slow, white whales. On clear days, they'd see their dream destination, Italy, freedom, and their dream killers, coast guards, sharks in water, fast metal boats ruling the seas, and watchtowers on Italian cliffs, warning the hopeful refugees, warning them to stay put, stay there, and never leave. On dark days, those among them who had braved the treacherous waves at night, who carved makeshift boats from trees to ride the moontide's watery cliffs, the waves would wash back their bodies, their eyes gone to hungry fish. The men would bury, the women hum, both forged sweltering songs of sorrow, hardship, pain, and loss. At sundown, the adults would trudge back inland for the tasks of keeping home, farms to tend, tents to sweep. Teenagers would split in couples and search for the huddled copse of trees to shelter and see to teenage needs, but the kids would roam free. This kid they called Rust. Her hair was a bush of clumps, her gaze stiff as stumps, and among the kids of the island, the strong ones, the beautiful, the musically gifted, the sprinters and the crybabies, she was the brave one. Everything an adventure, she'd dig through landfills that lined the island, seeking gifts of clumped goods, fist-sized bits of clockwork metal. She'd scurry back to her father's workshop, a scorched tent where he'd made repairs or tinkered with his engineering head. The camp dwellers always brought work, and as Menelik fixed their phones or radios, candles flickering like small gods, they talk of their lives back home, who they once were, and what they gave up. Rust would watch wide-eyed as her father worked, suck up all she could of his skill, and nosedive back into the landfills looking to build her works. Unless a worthy distraction appeared, nothing stopped her search. Today, this was it. A small cart, 4 wheels, a clear path downhill, backwind, an audience, and a thrill. North of the island, Salma, Rust's mother, leaves the communal kitchen carrying food for her family. Menelik, his brother, her roughneck daughter. In the tent, she rises before the spread and spots the clock, dinner time, and bellows her child's name. Ikenna, Ikenna, Ike. Rust rushes through the tent's entrance, disheveled, bits of dry bush cascading off her like rotten confetti. Her mother bellows loudly, "Have you been climbing landfill again? Eh? You are covered in rust. Is that sand in your hair? Are you wounded? Child, is that blood? Mama, don't worry, I've suffered worse." The women laugh at the child I've got who will never get married, Mama. Me, I work better alone. I don't need to get married. Rust hurries off as Salma carries on. Menelik enters. "Is my brother here?" They hug, a brief tight clinch in which an essay worth of words pass. "Gone since breakfast. You saw him last." "Maybe he'll come after dinner." "Is Ikenna here?" "Come in," Rust says, rushing, her hair a bush, half tamed. Night squats over the camp. Storytellers gather, musicians strum, thirst is quenched, bellies swell, till silence and sleep claim them again. Morning, the sun frozen in the sky, winged insects dappled by, a hurried voice at the tent's mouth. "Menelik, it's your brother. Come quick." They found him washed up on the shore. Whatever craft the waves had bore, how far he'd gotten, what he saw, knowledge he could share of the world beyond, locked inside his body, his eyes gone. Menelik crumples to the shore, and when the burial is done, songs sung, the camp as one turns inland, but Rust stands, kicks the sand, her eyes a stump of darkness. She heads south, picking her way through the shallow rock pools, starfish, mussels, crabs, stops before a camouflaged cave. She checks she isn't followed and ducks into her hideaway. The walls are papered every which way with charcoal sketches of pulleys and levers, clockwork etches of feathered motors. Rust lights a candle hoisted high above her head and pours light over a full-size model she hopes will cross the sea. Rust kneels before her scrap heap wings, thinking of her life. She says, "Uncle, it will fly. Tomorrow, you'll see." Dawn. Rust, who works through the night, slips back to her tent, a somber assortment of compassionate, merciful mourners who camouflaged her absence. Salma stops, her only child. "Are you hungry? Have you eaten? Ikenna, did you sleep?" Rust shrugs and struggles out of her grip, ruffles amongst her things for knots, spare screws, and bolts back to her cave. At noon, she steps out, the wings strapped to her back, and walks the busy path through the refugee camp, crowds trailing her, questions about their mouths. What is she doing? What do you think? Do you think that thing will fly? We have to leave this island, otherwise we'll die. But isn't that dangerous? Rust stops. I must try. Tell my parents I'm going to the highest rocky cliffs. Updraft should help the lift up, and the wind should glide me clean past the rocks. And by the time they reach the beach, I should be halfway across to Italy, to the dream. At first, the Italian Coast Guard ignored the large bird, but for the metallic glint that sheened among its feathers, they leaned into their telescope. "Captain, it's a girl. She must have left the island. Don't be absurd." He spits out the stiff drink and radios the snipers. "Is that a girl flying? Confirm what I see." Back on the islands, the refugees thrill as Rust swoops through the sky, mastering the wind. Malik calls, "Ikenna, fly straight to Italy." The kids chant, "Rust, Ikenna, Rust, Ikenna, Rust, Ikenna, Rust." Breeze takes their chants and calls like prayers to her wings, and on she flies to Italy, to freedom in their dreams. When the first bolt pops, Rust doesn't scream. When the harness belt snaps, she steadies in the wind. When the wing tears off, doubt slashes at her dream, and the second wind pulls her down beneath the sea. Silence takes the refugees. They stand solemn, stone still. Malik staring where she fell. Salma not daring to breathe. The folks deepening in sorrow that the sea had claimed their kin, had added to the souls oceans already keep. The refugees search for the right mournful hymn, but as their mouths form words, Salma hushes them. My daughter accomplished an incredible thing. She flew and reached for a future she could barely see. Brave, unstoppable, unmatched in zeal. When you sing her story, keep her bright, keep her real. Thank you.
Thank you, Inua. That was amazing. As a person who came to this country as a refugee, that very much resonated with me. That's that last piece. So thank you. Our next poet is Ifrah Hussein, who is Somali Canadian. She's an award-winning poet and author of an anthology of grief, All the Ways a Somali Woman Loves. She has performed both nationally and internationally in cities such as Vancouver, Rio de Janeiro, London, Paris, and New York. In January 2020, Ifrah was a recipient of the Best Spoken Word Artist Award by Black People's Choice Awards. And in 2019, Ifrah was also the recipient of the Artist of the Year Award at the Somali Excellence Awards. She is the 2017 Canadian Individual Poetry Slam champion, making her the first woman to have won that national title, which is just incredible. Ifrah is Somali like myself, and we have a saying in Somali, when you see injustice, you say, which means, does your blood not move at the sight of injustice? And I think her poetry really embodies that Somali sentiment. So yeah, Ifrah.
Hi, everybody. I hope you all are doing beautiful during this very difficult time. I am in a mandatory quarantine because I just returned from the US. So, you know, I don't know if you guys know, but the Canadian officers or the Canadian Border Protection folk are actually calling people and actually making sure they're home. So there's that. But I'm just gonna get straight into it. Lovely performances, just just moving, and I'm so grateful to be a part of this moving vehicle. By the way, thumbs up. Am I clear? Am I cutting out? How am I doing? We're good? Oh, wow. I love the solidarity. Look, everybody's hands just went. Okay. Who am I? I am the thing the world ain't figure out yet. 1,000 deaths curtsy to my feet in gratitude. I am everything's poem. Still trying to find the nooks for which all of me belongs. Black Laureate, all of grace, a protest, a riot, a gathering. Still a Black woman trying to write a poem and find my place in it. I am what came during the years of despondency, both in light and in rage. 1 million children asking God for anything but this. I am the horn and all of its 5 points. I am woman. Somali, I am 1991, wrapped tightly into the arms of the diaspora. I am origin, blood uncolonized for the sake of God. I sit at the feet of Tshaka in poem. I am the ocean swallowing Mogadishu's history and spitting it out into its most beautiful destruction. My God, this is what comes of women who are soaked so divinely into culture and then asked to say it all in English. This is the Wargade wall, history decimated for the sake of survival. I am the prosperous tongue, so graceful in how it tells you to remember. I am every synonym for refusal. I am everything you tried to soften, but how the hell you go and soften a Somali woman? I am Shabela the Hose. I am Ifrah Hussein, and I will burn this motherfucker to the ground if it means I will always keep my body. Thank you. Okay, I'm just gonna get right into the next piece. And the first time I actually performed this was in Rio, and I actually wrote this just weeks before going there, thinking that it would have no weight. I'd never do it again, but it is actually a very important piece to me in my heart, so I'm just gonna get into it. Donald Trump said, I have a great relationship with the Blacks. He would not have said this if he knew Black meant a communion of niggas in all praise and holy love over brunch under a sun that could both kiss and free all the parts of our bodies. The Emancipation Proclamation could never. These communions, both freedom and rejoicing all over again. Black women will freedom so much that our will became the freedom. Ilhan Omar is a Black Muslim woman, head wrapped, neck long, and voice invigorated by both mercy and loyalty to a flag that still chokes her. The entire United States is trying to grapple at her neck, but nobody can shake a Black woman who speaks to God at night. And ain't this the path on which the holy war begins to line its militia? All civil obedience, all militants, Black, Muslim, and God-fearing. How when the Twin Towers fell, our hijabs fell with them. How they will not give me a job because I still have not apologized for the death of 3,000 Americans. How the death of 3,000 Americans means my mother does not deserve to be alive. How children who learn the words of Allah suddenly are combatant against the same constitution that convinces us terrorism sits on the tongues of those who praise God before both breaking our fasts and speaking with white men. My mother tells me to bring the resistance with less noise to avoid legal backlash. But no matter what language I sing Fela Kuti, Nina Simone, and Gil Scott-Heron in at the end of my song, I am still the same nigga. Thank you. I hope y'all are well. Let me just check in for a minute. Y'all good? Give me some thumbs up. I think one person is frozen, either that or they are meditating, but we gonna keep it moving. Let me get into my next piece. All right. I did this piece. This piece was actually commissioned for CBC. I don't know if any of you are familiar with CBC, but it's the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. And so they asked me to do a piece as a response to the taking of Black lives, the taking of Black breath, and primarily after the death of George Floyd. So I'm gonna get right into it. Oh, it is hot in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Wow, very hot. Okay. This here is where endurance and revolutionary agony come to a middle ground. This insurgency writes a poem in anger, and the people call it a riot. This poem emerges from the voice of a fatigued Black woman. This poem is tired of being. This poem will not conclude. This poem will remind you of transgression. Black lives only matter when Black lives speak. The torment of Blackness is only recognized when Blackness tells you how tired it is of being tormented. Black lives will decimate the injustice, even if you censor our clamor. Black lives will remind you of George Floyd, of Tamir Rice, of Regis Korchinski-Paquette, of Mike Brown, of Trayvon Martin, of Andrew Loku, of Sandra Bland, of Abdirahman Abdi, of Philando Castile, of my kin, all of my kin. You can call this the revolution that came searching for us instead. Call it 3,000 poems trying to make metaphors out of the taking of Black breath. Call it guerrilla. Call it the pushback. Call it the liberation. Call it a voice flustered. Call it a breath that loses its sequence because blue coats couldn't hold on to anything more reasonable. Call it my sanity, trying to make way for things greater than just trying to survive. Call this a million roses thrown into the air, and all of them descending individually onto the graves of Black bodies in conflict. There is no halting until justice takes us by the hand and tells us we have a seat somewhere in a system we don't have to break, because legislation only changes after our patience becomes our rage. Call this the televising of revolution. Call this a Black woman's voice. Call this a Black woman's indignation. Call this a cry for due process. Call this a Black woman's sorrow. Call this a Black woman's prayer. When the protests come to a halt and the signs gradually descend to an afterthought, this is to remind you that we still cannot breathe. The justice system stands as a reminder to abide, but cannot remind itself that it does not have the capacity to hold everything. Our mothers ask God for both mercy and protection. And when the night falls, they give thanks for being. This poem here does not ask for mercy. It does not seek to replace our mothers broken. In this poem, I do not ask for breath. In this poem, I ask why I did not have it to begin with. Thank you. I'm getting into my last piece. It is called Black Men Don't Die. And it's one of the pieces that is in my book, An Anthology of Grief, or The Ways a Somali Woman Loves. And I had actually written this piece after my cousin was killed. So here, they don't pray unless they are sure heaven is safer than this world. Here, we are in abundance of lonely and stillness. Here, we pray in our sleep and awake in our supplication. We ask God to keep us here for another moment here. The Somalis are met with what we ran from here. Blackness is a sin that white tears will apprehend here. My brothers are nowhere, and I am in a nowhere that the world is trying to radicalize and then dawn me with insanity when they poked at my skin and told me to move. What is blackness but to live in a world that makes waking up more painful than my blood drawn? They take our men and then tell us to grieve quietly. Black women don't know how to grieve quietly. Here, Black men don't die quietly. Death is our revolutionary unfolding of Black effort, so we reserve grave spaces for the undead. Colonialism patronizes Blackness, pilfers our lives, and then sells it back to us with a eulogy promising heaven as our healing space after they kill the niggas in numbers. But tell me, who bleeds a deeper hue of blood than our men? unafraid of a death you gave to them before their mothers died blissfully on hospital beds. Our men are the darkest tint of terror. They are the necropolis white cops come to bathe in when it gets too mucky outside. But here, nobody prays unless they are sure heaven is safer than this world here. Black men don't die because heaven is safer than this world here. Black men carry birth certificates as identification in case their inert carcasses need to be identified here. Black men wonder if heaven looks anything like home here. Black men wonder if heaven looks anything like this. Thank you. I am Ifrah Hussein, and it has been a pleasure.
Thank you, Ifrah. The pleasure was all ours. Thank you, Bayo. Is everyone okay? I know that some of the topics that we're touching on are quite heavy, so if we need like a little break, let me know in the chat and we can do that. Is everyone thumbs up? Okay, to keep going? Okay. All right, last but not least, we have Tshaka Campbell. He is originally from London, England. Tshaka is a poet, musician, artist, and performer. He has toured internationally and has been featured at theatres from the legendary Apollo Theatre in New York to the O2 in London. He has authored several books, including TARMAN, Tunnel Vision, and his most recent, Letters to My Daughter. He has also recorded 3 albums entitled One, Bloodlines, and Skin Volume 1, and collaborated on a number of musical projects in the house, jazz, and blues genre. He's currently on the board of directors for the Poetry Center San Jose and was one of the 3 finalists for the 2020 Santa Clara Poet Laureate. He currently resides in sunny California and continues to ask the world to listen different.
Hey, can you guys hear me okay? Wonderful, wonderful. So first of all, thank you. Thank you guys for allowing me to be part of this and for creating a space where we can talk about these things, right? Because I think that's at the heart of this, is having some of these conversations. And they're as you mentioned, right? They're difficult ones, but you know, I think it's in our duty, and especially as poets and artists, right? It's like a washing machine. Like, if we're not agitating shit, then we're not doing what we're supposed to do, you know? So there you go. And I curse, by the way. Okay, so let's get into this, right? So big ups to all the people in London that I haven't seen in frickin' ages. I miss you guys. Miss being on the stage, missing seeing your voices. I mean, hearing your voices, seeing your faces. There's that. But what I wanted to do is talk a little bit about sort of my experience with all that's going on with the movement and Black Lives Matters right now. You know, when everything started, I was just sort of like, okay, poet, write some poems. And I'm like, yeah, I've got 70 million of those poems, because this is not just a today thing, you know? And so literally at first, my immediate thing was, I'm not writing anything. I've already written these poems, right? And then I was like, no, because it's still a continued conversation. It has to happen. And actually I need to release some of this. So I think this new sort of rage of injustice is becoming in the public forum, has made me think about who I am and who I am and who I've been made to be because of those experiences. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about that. I'm gonna steal from Ifrah's start of this with a who am I? Who am I? I am grown from a purpose soaked into a slow burn. A character that of life is fire and stone, the backbone of pharaohs left to alchemy worlds, into trauma or trauma into words. A black pearl spawn, Southeast London born, fed into the mouth of Brooklawn. I am Ladywell and Albee Square Mall, melting the asphalt beneath my feet, house music carved into the belly of a breakbeat. All that to say, I am the what was, that is the foundation of what will be, spitting a dope 16 where there is no guest list tonight. The era of a skelly game, done at the first smile of streetlights, heathen working the muscle, bully pushing a pen hustle. This here is 50 years combined with a Jamaican struggle. I be the father's patois dripped into the wrist so that each stanza ends with an island breeze. I am the sheath holding the edge of midnights. A sharpened bullet cut into a chamber of a black boy named nigger, but retooled black man, husband, father, poet, father more than a poet. Being a father makes more of this poet. Furthermore, I be a run-on sentence, running on like superfluous if not handled correctly, spoken like the embedded memory of a peeled back, where at any point nigger can seep through the seams like code switch. I am as if a kiss grew into a poem and turned its cadence to a mantra, code switch. Motherfuckers may be made to maybe hear the meandering mean of my mention as meaning anger, when in fact it's more my moving mountains made to make my momentum momentary, but still I move through these moments with code switch. I be these words. Caressed around a quick 24. 12 more than a written testimony's folklore, rocking J's and electronic ore laid before ancestors. Therefore, I am the lacerated stare of rebel Africa, sitting in the witch's brew. Fear not that I see you, but how close these words resemble the resurrection that lives in these poems. I am when you swallow lines and realize you are what you eat, in triumph or defeat. Save each tear in a pen so each can write its own piece. Who am I? I am the past that is so present. I start the day with first just surviving death. Code switch. Motherfucker, I wish you would. Code switch. I am always the only roar in the still of stairs. Who am I? I am Hottentot Venus and Dubois in the eye of a slave ship. A silent T holding a bullwhip tongue, calling back the thunder. These eyes recognize how close we are to the share and crop, how the drip of Africa left in the drum peels the sound of capture from the heart. So I beat these words like church fire and bullet, Trayvon and Bland, Tubman in a rope burn set to erupt a revolution on an Alabama plantation, gunny sack and cotton gin in flames. I am broken God, speaking obsidian in a land of ramble. I am from birth, Tshaka, Menelik, Imhotep, Campbell. Thank you. Thank you. So, thank you guys. So that was, you know, again, it's just, well, who am I, right? But over, like I said, this time I, you know, I'm looking at Facebook. I'm looking at these comments that are on Facebook, and I'm a little angry, right? For a number of reasons, as can be quite obvious. But one of the things I wanted to pluck out, you know, this is kind of the who am I, the social media scavenger that goes out and gets pissed off at what people say. So this poem that came out of that is called Tic Tac Two. She said, and I quote, "I sometimes wonder," and you know I'm asking with respect and love, parentheses, "do you think some of this vitriol would have been averted if the original statement had been Black Lives Matter too?" Parentheses, admittingly not as impactful heart emoji. And I wanted to throw my phone in the ocean, but I didn't, because I paid a lot of money for it. But I wanted to respond with an encyclopedia of retort written in lightning and expired slave blood. But I thought, no, she's already had enough of stolen Henrietta Lacks in her people's cancer remission. So I will refrain from gifting her yet even more of our legacy. But what is it, right? What's it about the serpent's apple that you can't accept now that it's baked into your American pie and fed back to you? What is it? What can't you swallow? Is it the hashtag? Does it denote too much? I mean, it is, after all, self-sustaining, right? When you add a hashtag to a word or phrase, it becomes something that can be recognized and weaponized. So then, is the concern with it being followed by Black? Because then the word Black becomes a projectile, right? Black gets loaded like ammunition pointed toward a truth you've been hiding in a construct of oblivion for centuries, and the parts left wash over you like burden, like guilt. Or is it that the hashtag itself resembles tic-tac-toe? that game of strategy that targets and bullet holes, X's and O's. This game is historical anarchy at its best, appearing by name in the 1800s when Black bodies were plug and play, where according to the rules, the goal is to be the first one to get 3 in a row, like what now comes after a term of least 25 years to life. The parallels are kind of crazy. The second player, of course, can never win, right? He can only force a draw at most. Lord knows what happens when men that look like you are forced to draw at most. Another set of angel wings are tufted and primed. But what is it in the hashtag that grows cracks in justice, that morphs into gorges? Black Lives Mattering, it's not a game. It's not a game to satisfy a fragility we've never been afforded ourselves. It cannot be matriculated into 3 extra letters, the last 2 of which resemble bullet holes sitting alongside where 2 bloodlines intersect. You say 2 like syrup crawling off your tongue. I mean, would you send your son into war asking whether he can get a helmet too? Can he be given a gun to protect himself too? No, you would expect it. You'd brandish your entire heritage, family crests and all, to not even have him out there fighting in the first place. Understand that our bodies are under attack, and I do not know where the names will exist after all the trees have fallen. There are no tombs dug deep enough to outlive this grief. We do not matter in addition to. Black lives would not be othered. We will not be an extra phrase behind being human. Your sanity will not be sanitized for the sake of your sanctuaries. Now, I can remember being at the end of an itchy trigger finger because I too looked like the perpetrator. Remember thinking my mother was going to be made childless too. Was I going to have a closed casket too? But I thought I made all the right choices too. I moved to this neighborhood to be safe too. These 4 cops staring at me with gunpowder on their breath, ready to abyss my entire being for a momentary glance, were meant to protect and serve me too. My life is not determined by linguistics. I am modeled from the remnants of unsuccessful assassinations thrown at my footsteps daily. So our response will not be short. It will meander and pull from the hull of shipwrecked souls and sit at the edge of your throat every time you think to utter that a Black life should be an adverb, that an and should be annexed to autopsies, that it should be stuck to the end of your tongue. So matter of fact, Black Lives Matter as a fact, period, end of fucking sentence. Hashtag facts. Thank you for that. So, yeah, so thank you. Black Lives Matter indeed. So I was a little angry. You'll probably tell that just a tad bit. But again, this was a whole, you know, the thing about this is a whole journey in me digging into who like what being I don't want to say victim because it's not the right word, but what being in this type of environment has done to me, right? Like how that shaped me for good or bad. And, you know, there was a poem that sort of spawned off of this one that made me start looking at, to tell you the truth, guys, it was like there's one day when all of this stuff was happening. I'm gonna, you know, confessions of Tshaka Campbell, right? It's sort of you walk around and I'm like, oh, I've done the corporate thing and I do the proper thing and I went to the right school. So, you know, I'm kind of okay. Right, I may be passed by, and then I sit back and I realize how many times I've been in these situations where, like, I would not be here talking to you guys today, right? And these are not because like I was in the middle of some like, you know, robbing a bank. This is like I'm walking down the street. So all these things that folks are saying are like, oh, person can't do this. This is life. This is like real shit. This is not a narrative, right? And for whatever reason, it always hits me. And you'll see in this poem, it's like, I think as people of color, especially Black men, I think in order to survive, we've almost got to tuck this thing away, right? Because you can't move forward, you know, with all of this. It's so heavy. So again, all of this is making me unpack stuff, and I'll stop talking and go to the poem. This is called Stuck, and it's a work in progress. I'm wrung from a sediment of granite hands, a flint edge ready for a motherfucker to brush fire. You know what devils had to be tamed for me to be here now? Eating at this language, vapid like Anything I say will outweigh the dialect my skin speaks. At the speed in which a synapse can go from the eye to the brain to the trigger pull is about 150 milliseconds, and my truth don't near move that fast. Not at least at the speed of this skin. It never did, it never will. But on these 2 feet, here I am standing in a yoke broken out of trauma after the swell of 4 gun nozzles raised behind my neck. The slow turn to realize that serve and protect did not speak my color as quickly as my sight moved from their 4 gun sights to the momentary ease of seeing the uniform, to the immediate unease at seeing their uniforms, then back to my own mortality was still not as fast as how instantly my parents would be asked to rename their son, boy resisting arrest. I remember trying to keep so still with a slice of pizza in one hand and my heart in the other. So rigor mortis that I fell back into the door like a demolishing church gasping for lost souls. See, back then it was more say their eulogy and less say their names. Now, it makes me think about COVID, like COVID-1. And if there was a COVID-1, how must it feel after it took 18 more generations to be acknowledged? Like, I imagine the jealousy of all the unknown spirits that cannot attach themselves to a hashtag. I do not know the flashbacks to that fall backwards moments makes every new news story feel like a collapsed lung. I guess all them Heinekens I drank must have mulattoed my blood some, because that day's outcome wrote lucky above my obituary column. See, it was one of those memories, those remember that time I almost never knew my daughter's name kind of memories. To know that the only response to piss now running down my leg and staining my pants was that I fit the description of someone breaking into houses, as if they hadn't already broken into the only place my vulnerable ever called home. And even that wasn't offered up until they slowly reholstered their prejudice. You know who I need to be to strangle the air outside this moment? To be strangled by the fear of what they don't see and they don't know yet, but I'm still here. I'm still here by the off chance that their fingers are steady enough to not paint me into a mural splashed on an undisturbed feature wall with graffitied words 6 feet tall in memory of one more nigga unfortunate enough to look like himself. You know how hard it is to be born of love but look like hate to people that will never know how much your heart is spread across the sky? And I changed that day. Something soured inside me, so faint I didn't realize it happened until the taste found its mouth in the first time I told my daughter I'd keep her safe. It's a slipped breath you cannot catch no matter how deep the inhale. Cotton-mouthed and raw. And I learned over time that this is an initiation ceremony to a tribe of throats grasping for air. So any argument I have with myself about how important my life is like debating with a mayfly the best way to live a 24-hour lifespan. But you know what they say, right? You ain't lived till you outlive the police stop. So I guess that makes me part cat, fighting the inevitable. But today, I lay into the wind and I search for harmony in the sway. And after tucking away the latest genocide into my breast pocket, I am the shaky hand of a clock wound too tight. And my wife asks me, how do you hide your wrists from men who want to adorn them? And I remind her of that scene in The Avengers, right, where Bruce Banner is told by Captain America, no less, now may be a good time to get angry. And he responds, that's my secret. I am always angry. Well, I am always Black and angry. But to hold on to this heartbreak is to stay stuck. And I have to move or I will be made still. So I push through and I swallow this pill, because in order for my body to survive, my mind must be free-willed. But still, do you know how much reclaiming of your name it takes to convince your bones you come from legacy? To walk into who I have to be versus the massacre of who I wanted to be in that moment. See, this is less poem and more diary. More ignored incidents and less inquiries. Just reaching 50 years old should not be a reason to admire me. Nonetheless, the survival of that silent scream taught my body to hoard things that should be shed. But this skin cannot be abandoned. Instead, it welts and breaks into a graveyard of trauma, a boxed heirloom left in a hidden drawer under a rubbled ruin grown out of a crippled quarry, where every morning I search for how to rid myself of these stone hands, to feel human again. But till then, I slowly chip away at the rock. I twist the tears and the nightmares between them, and I hope that the residued pulp will reroot and grow me a safer skin. See, all this is less poem and more diary. These deaths by police cannot be ignored. We need more inquiries. I'm happy for those who haven't the distress, but rest in peace to the unlucky ones prior to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tshaka.
I want to hear it. I'm sorry. I have to hear the applause. I have to hear it.
And I just have one more to end with, and I think this is super important, because all this time I'm talking about myself, right? And what I realized, you know, in this sort of introspection is that I got a 10-year-old, right? And she's hearing all of this and seeing all this on TV. She doesn't know how to process it. I mean, I don't even know the language to talk about this. You know, I've tried to reach out to my elders, and you know, they've gone through these times as well, and try and get from them sort of how you work through this. But even there, this is a different world, right? Social media, I mean, we find out what's going on in a different part of the world within 3 seconds of it happening. So it's just this overload, and it's in every aspect of our lives and her life. So anyway, there's this poem that came out, really, it's a really short one that came out after I was about to leave out the door to go to a Black Lives Matter.
You got this, Tshaka. You got it, bro.
Go to a Black Lives Matter launch. I was not supposed to be emotional.
It's okay. Emotions are okay. We're allowed to show emotions.
So I was going to a Black Lives Matter thing, and I didn't realize it. She was like, all right, Dad, okay, see you later. And she's hugging me, and then she's hugging me again, and then she's hugging me again. And I'm just like, it's not even clicking inside me until after I come back, and she was so happy when I walked through the door. Anyway, I wrote this after that. It's called Angst. When the front door closes, her eyes tick and dance a pregnant flutter. The blink, an eclipse followed by the black of her calling for the wet to sink back into her swallow. She would wrap every footstep in prayer, but her God is too small. She doesn't yet have a name for this feeling. It's new, a seed. It tastes like lost. She hasn't never yet grown into, but she is old enough to know the air is filled with funeral, and her only wish is that every evening her daddy be delivered back home. So that's it. Guys, thank you so much for having me. You've helped me cleanse, and just thank you for being here and listening.
Thank you so much, Tshaka. I hope that, you know, all those performances have highlighted how important this cause is, Black Lives Matter, which is a civil rights issue, and it's so real for many of us. If I speak personally for myself, I felt re-traumatized by seeing, you know, police brutality and institutional racism play out in a very sort of visual way nowadays because of social media. We're seeing videos of people being murdered, people that look like me, and that for me is very traumatic, and it's triggering as well. And it took me a few sort of weeks to sort of recover and then find a way to like channel my anger and my frustration. And this is one of the ways that I did, creating something that could benefit and educate and nourish a lot of us. And I think it's important to, I mean, it reminds me of the quote by Toni Morrison about artists and the time that artists go to work. This is precisely the time when artists go to work. There is no time for despair, no place for self-pity, no need for silence, no room for fear. We speak, we write, we do language. That is how civilizations heal. And that is a quote that's very, very dear to me, by Toni Morrison, may God rest her soul. And this is precisely when artists go to work at a time like this. And I think all of the artists that performed tonight showed that in such a powerful way. There's a discussion, but I'm making a sort of executive decision here that I think it'd be good to have a little meditation before we go to the discussion part of the evening. And I run so 8 weeks ago, my friend and I founded Safe Spaces for Black Women, which is a support group for Black women to come together and express themselves. At the moment, because of COVID, we're doing it online on Zoom, and we have a Black therapist that leads the sessions weekly, and I co-facilitate, and I sort of do the meditation side of things and sort of operational things. And I do a 3-minute meditation after each session. And I think it's important for us to sort of process and center ourselves when we're going through such a difficult period. So I've put in the chat a little sort of YouTube video, which has music in the background that you can play while we go through the 3-minute meditation. So get comfortable, sit in whatever position is comfortable for you, whether that's cross-legged, whether that's on the floor, whether that's lying down. You can close your eyes, you can keep your eyes open if you like, whatever position feels comfortable for you. Close your eyes or keep them open. Sit in a position that's comfortable for you. I invite you, when you take your next breath, to simply be conscious. Allow your breath to bring you into the present moment, here and now. Breathe through your nose. Inhale cool air and nurture yourself. Exhale warm air and expel any tension and negative emotions. Feel your feet connecting you to the floor and the earth. Breathe in and hold for 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3, and exhale. Breathe in and hold for 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3, and exhale. Gently correct your posture by slowly lifting your chin until the top of your head radiates up towards the sky. Relax your shoulders down like ice melting in a hot spring, and feel your neck grow long. Relax your forehead. Relax your eyes. Relax your jaw. Relax your ears. And relax the muscles at the back of your neck. Notice your breath and allow it to bring you into the present moment when you are safe, relaxed, and doing something positive. Quiet your mind. Let thoughts go by like leaves floating in a mountain stream. Bring your attention to your breath. Breathe in and hold for 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3, and exhale. Breathe in and hold for 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3, and exhale. Disengage from the past and from the future. Enjoy fully the present moment. Begin to cultivate an inner peace. A space or a safe place in your heart filled with love and light. breathe. Inhale and hold for 3. 1, 2, 3, and exhale. Inhale and hold for 1, 2, 3, and exhale. Feel every breath of your particle. Feel every breath of particle leave your body and enter slowly back in. Breathe in and hold. 1, 2, 3, and exhale. Open your eyes and come back to the space when you feel ready. I'm so glad you're all here with me and that we're here together. I think I really needed that as much as everybody else. So in terms of discussion, I was thinking that perhaps each poet could talk about why the Black Lives Matter movement is important to them in their own words. I know that you all touched on this in your poems, but perhaps you could, I mean, you're all great storytellers, but talk about a personal reason why this movement is important to you and why, because I often get people telling me all lives matter, and that frustrates me. So perhaps if some of you could touch on that. I mean, I've talked about it till the cows come home. So yeah, I'm sure you've all encountered that as well. So perhaps I'll go backwards. If Tshaka could go first, please.
Sure. God, why does it, other than the obvious,
Yeah.
I think that this, as opposed to, outside of the core civil rights movement, right, the momentum that is behind it right now is sort of why it's important for me. I mean, it's always going to be important, but important for me to try to make sure that I'm still pushing that and providing fuel for it and pushing everybody to, because again, this is, it's not just a US thing, and you can see that when Amish people who don't involve themselves in anything are standing up and saying Black Lives Matters, and it's in every corner of the world, that we've had the opportunity with social media and just with technology as it is today to get this concept in front of folks, right? And so yes, it's this big specific the BLM movement, right, is around police being accountable for what they're doing and murdering folks and getting away with it, right? So that's at that core of the movement, which needs to be addressed. And then, as you know, it's then filtered to mean these other things, right? Like all lives matters. Okay, cool. I'm lactose intolerant. That don't mean I don't care about milk. It's what this thing that we're focusing on is not, independent of the other lives as well. But the other lives aren't dying like the ones that are dying now and at the hands of people that are serve and protect. So, again, it's important to me now because there is some momentum here that we didn't have before in this narrative. And so we need to push it, there's, like I said in the poem, right, there's tons of souls that are out there before there was a hashtag, right? So we honor, it's an honor to them as well to get this stuff sorted, to get people, get it recognized and put the pressure on folks to make change, right? It's
Absolutely.
change. We're not asking for, folks aren't asking to be better than, to get more than. It's like, just you want to be acknowledged, you want to be seen, right? And held in the same conversation. And it's so, I mean, especially being over here, and I'll shut up soon, but on being on this side of the pond, right? It's so mixed into the mortar and the cement, and it's just built into everything that, like, I saw this thing on TV. I think it was Kamal, I forget his name, and he put an iceberg, right? And this iceberg, and then the water under the iceberg, and it said up top here is like your BLM and your police, brutality, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's this massive bottom of the iceberg that's under the water that no one talks about. And it's the little things like the redlining, the, you know, seeing someone being some abused or some injustice and not saying anything about it, right? It's, they put up here as your KKK, all these massive things that you can rally around, but there's such this massive foundation under it that makes all of that stuff stand up. And this needs to make the waters recede, and so that we can access and see all this other stuff that's going on.
Right.
So
thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. Ifrah.
Yeah, honestly, I'm gonna second what brother had to say. To be honest, I can't really top that. Outside of being a Black woman, a Black woman's woman, a Black woman's woman. You know, when I was in Brazil in October of 2019, there was a panel, and amongst the panel speakers was one woman where she said, and it just resonated with me completely. She said, social change begins with Black art. And I also believe that social change is also fueled by Black rage, which is also stemmed from Black art. I feel like, you know, we're almost, like John Keats said, you know, poets are the midwives of reality. So it's as if we're carrying the narrative, we're carrying the anger, we're carrying the rage. And so I'm just gonna second what brother had to say, because I just feel like if I spoke about this, I would continue speaking until Ramadan of next year.
Yeah, I understand.
So, I'm gonna nod myself to brother and just go off of what he said.
Thank you, Ifrah. Inua, is there something you want to say, or?
There's nothing particularly, nothing that Ifrah or
I'm just wondering, since you're based in the UK, how do you feel about this term BAME, Black, Asian, minority, ethnic, and being lumped into that sort of category rather than, you know, being considered Black, and how you navigate that in a way? Because I think that's also something that's part of the discussion when it comes to Black Lives Matter.
I see the reason why the term was created, BAME. It was a buck-sticking exercise, and it helps differentiate, to control, to create quotas. But I also see how it swallows whole ethnic groups, how it isn't porous. For instance, Irish people are a minority ethnic group in the UK. They pass by any European citizen are a minority ethnic group here. So the terms aren't indelible. They sometimes undo themselves. And I think the larger problem with these terms is that it centers whiteness, and we are all other. But because I'm an immigrant and I grew up in Nigeria, and I grew up in the country in which I had Black privilege, I know that white people there would be the minority ethnic group, for instance. So each time I try and think about the geopolitical context in which these terms sit and what they mean to different people, you know. So that always sort of tempers my outlook here, and I try to be a realist at the same time. I try to be human first, because being a realist sometimes, being a human and having emotions and being a machine that feels trumps all of those things, you know. But there are campaigns to come up with another term that specifically means anti-Blackness, so it can be called out, which is different from just other forms of racism. There's something specific with anti-Blackness, which was constructed as the antithesis to anti-whiteness, and which is why Black rage, like Ifrah says, that's why it's so groundbreaking. Because if you deconstruct that and it's at the bottom, then everything necessary has to fall. I think we here, though we're not in the kiln, which is where the Americans are, we do carry on a lot of the traits. And the British constructed racism, constructed the racial hierarchy, which we taught to the Americans because the British colonized America. So all of this, the legacy, it stems from this mothership, from right here. But the British, they sweep all the shit under the carpet or point to America and say, it's happening there, it's not here. But on the flip side, British politicians are quick to talk about the UK and the British, so the UK and the US special relationship, but distance that relationship when the repercussions of that relationship plays out like this. So I think one of the jobs for writers is to just hold the mirror to the UK, to always draw the lines back and say, yeah, Trump's an asshole, we're not debating that, but asshole, where did he come from? You know?
I think this could probably be an event in itself discussing this. But moving on, thank you, Inua. I also wanted to touch on, and this is a fact, that women, Black women who've died at the hands of police brutality have not had as much attention or justice brought to their plight as have Black men, and that is a fact. We can look at Breonna Taylor, for example, and I want to talk a little bit about why that is, how much patriarchy plays and misogyny plays in the, in Black Lives Matter movement as well. Maybe MariaM or Zena could touch on that. Whoever, Zena, let's go first.
Yeah, sure. So I'd like to speak about Sarah Reid. I don't know how many people remember Sarah Reid. Sarah Reid was a Black woman who died in Holloway Prison in North London. She had suffered from mental health illness after mistreatment when her baby had died, after she'd given birth and her baby had died. And they basically just gave her child in her arms and just said, and put her in a cab, and she had a nervous breakdown. She experienced sexual abuse in a mental health institution, and then she went to Holloway Prison, and there was a footage of her supposedly shoplifting, but that's also some racial profiling that happened there. And she went to prison, and she died in Holloway Prison. So nobody talks about Sarah Reid. And that being part of British extended colonial violent state racism. And I think just off of the back, I kind of want to reflect back on a couple of things, what Inua was saying about America being the child of Britain. And I think that's such an important thing to remember. The other thing to remember is that most of slavery, chattel enslavement of Africans happened on American soil. So it's easier to discount what happens in Britain. One of the things I notice is that there's a real disconnect, I feel, with the emotional impact that racism has on Black UK citizens. I just wanted to hug Tshaka. I was like, I just want to give this guy a hug right now. But the thing is, what is beautiful about that is that you can speak from your gut. You can speak from what's real for you, what's true for you. I feel because there's a larger Black community, a large population in America, so you have more of a support system, whereas only 2.7% of the population in Britain spread across the whole of the country. So it's very hard to have a coalition or community that we can call a tight community where we can receive support, so we can have an emotional dimensionality to our experience. I've found that I don't connect with my emotions so much when it comes to racism, because when you do, you're either considered angry or you're considered crazy. And particularly as a Black woman, that whole angry Black woman trope comes in. We have every right to be angry, but we have other emotions as well. So I think there is something, we have all of the emotions, we have all of the spectrum of human emotions, but when we don't have an opportunity to express them, we don't have an opportunity for them to be validated in mainstream media, or, even in our literature, sometimes I think in the mainstream that is. So I think, to me, the fact that Black women are not as much attention is not paid to them is purely because it speaks to a wider societal opinion when it comes to Black women when we speak. We're compared to Black men in terms of, well, Black women are doing so much more successfully, you have more jobs, we have more, you know, you have a higher wage bracket, However, that doesn't tell you the story behind how we got there. It doesn't tell you the struggle and the drama and the trauma that we have to go through to get to these positions. The other side to this that I want to express is that when every single time I see a Black man killed, I'm thinking, that's my brother, that's my cousin, that's my uncle, that's my son, that's my father. Who is there to protect me? I feel so vulnerable, so vulnerable every single time I see another Black man killed on my timelines. And it's one of the most distressing things that I think I've ever had to experience in my life. And at the same time as wanting to protect the internal landscape, i.e. the emotionality of Black men, I also need protecting too. And speaking about it can be very, very difficult. So for me, I feel the way that Black women are invisibilized in that sense, you're either invisible or hyper visualized. Those two extremes are also very, very traumatic because you're dragged from one extreme emotion to another extreme emotion. No human being is going to be able to experience that without some kind of destabilization that happens when you're doing that. So yeah, I've got tons to say on it too, so I'm going to stop.
Thank you, Zena. That was very thought-provoking, and yeah, I agree. MariaM, do you have something to chime in there, or?
Yeah, I mean, I completely concur with what Zena said. There's so much to say on that issue, but as she was speaking, it just, another thought that came to me was about even just how young all of that begins as a Black woman. And it doesn't begin as you enter womanhood. It starts off very early, and even just things in being in school, you know, the language that is used to describe, you know, Black young girls, or the treatment you get, we're very much aged, and we're not allowed to be children, we're not allowed to be adolescents, and then as women, we're not allowed to be women in a sense of, we're not allowed to be women that kind of experience a whole range of emotion. We're not allowed to be vulnerable, we're not allowed to be seen as soft, or it's the complete opposite where we're kind of made to seem we're so exotic and so on. So there's so many things, but especially just the language uses for young people. I remember kind of even being a young person in school myself, and just the treatment of how, if there was some sort of kind of emotional distress, or there was some issues going on, you know, in my family or something, it was never handled with the same level of care. So if I was kind of showing out in some emotions in school, I was never taken aside or taken to the pastoral care office and cared for and questioned as to whether my well-being was kind of okay, as much as women or girls of other races, because it was instantly, you're told that, oh, you're aggressive, you're angry, you're rude, and a lot of negative kind of connotations put on you, as opposed to your humanity being shown. And I feel like as a Black woman, that is something that we almost have to fight to be shown our humanity, which is really sad, really, because we are human, just like everyone else is human. So there's so many things to say, but that's just one aspect I wanted to kind of highlight, really. So yeah, and just kind of put that to everybody, but yeah.
Thank you, MariaM. We're coming to the end of the event, and before I hand it over to MariaM to finish off for us with a performance of two of her songs, I'd just like to thank everybody for joining us. Each and every one of you made this event what it is. It was truly an authentic and nourishing experience for me, and I hope it was for you as well, and knowledgeable as well. Like I feel like I learned a lot from all the artists that shared their work tonight, and I think it's also important to acknowledge that we all have a part to play in contributing towards this movement, every single one of us. And it's not, you may think that, you know, you sitting in your home, and you may even think, oh, I'm not Black, so I don't have a place in this. You're human. Sometimes people feel awkward, and I've had a lot of white friends who've contacted me and say, oh, I feel really awkward, I don't know what to say, what to do, you know. And I think that it's important for you to take a stand and use your privilege, because you are in a place of privilege as a white person or a person who isn't Black. Unfortunately, there is this hierarchy that exists in the world, which we must dismantle, and we will dismantle one day. And I'd like to acknowledge my co-host Danielle, who hasn't spoken, but who has really, really supported me in doing this event. And I don't think this event would have been possible without her support, because as a Black woman who is very much affected by what's going on in the world, and like Zena said, when I see a Black man murdered, it's like it's my brother, it's like it's my father. So I am triggered on a very personal level. And I remember, you know, calling Danielle and saying, oh, I just feel really like down about this, and her encouraging me and actually saying, you know, let's organize an event together and doing this thing together. And I think that if you're a white person in this room right now who feels like, oh, what can I do? Be an ally for your Black friends. I think it's really important. And we're human beings. We should stand together as human beings, with whatever cause that comes up. Today it may be the Black Lives Matter movement. Tomorrow it may be a cause to do with anti-Semitism, which is also something that's, you know, very, very prominent. And unfortunately there is a rise of that. Zena, yes, you'd like to say something.
I would just like to ask a really quick question. What made some of our audience members come here today? That's just a simple question.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to know. Okay,
if you put your hand up, maybe I can call out your name and you can. Lester, if you unmute yourself.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I really like what you shared with us today. I was one of those, we are like kind of colleagues, let's say, with Fatima, so we share poetry in a group. I once mentioned all life matter, right? But I think that what I mean is nothing that is trying to tell you, it's not that what is going on with Black people doesn't matter. Because I have a very strong experience. I have experienced racism where I come from. And I come from Central America, where all people are mixed in terms of ethnicity, right? But there is racism there. So when I was 14, my family had to move to a different country. And when I arrived, I, for the first time, met racism. For me, I didn't know that thing existed. And I am, let's say, specifically, not really Black. So, but as you see, I look quite native, let's say, like half and half, white and native. But although the skin color is an issue for me. But anyway, going back to the phrase, what would be the way for someone like me personally to address that other people are also experiencing a kind of racism, and not necessarily Black, because all around the world, I have to highlight something also, that Black people is taking over of this, like in the sense that you are leading something. Because I feel on my own, in my own country, people have to hide. I learned how to hide, and I hate that. So, but I feel with you guys, I kind of support, and it's possible to make people aware to get rid of this. That's all what I wanted to mention. Thank you.
Thank you, Lester. Some people have been writing in the chat. Alex Adams said, I came to learn and hear new perspectives, quite simply. Akila M. Richards said, I came because I want to stay connected with poetry in the context of BLM. I need this art to stay sane after all the trauma and heartache. I think somebody, Mabel, put her hand up. I saw earlier. Mabel, are you here? No? Okay. Is there anybody else that would like to say something?
Can I just, I want to try to attempt to answer part of Lester's question that you asked.
Sure.
All lives matter, that's obvious. But in what we are seeing overtly is the objectification of Black death, violence upon the Black body. And it seems to be something that it's okay to have it sprawled all over our social media timelines. And the dehumanization of, and criminalization, demonization of Black youth, it seems to be something that is okay to happen. Like with the murder of George Floyd, for example, whenever we see violence committed on other races sometimes, or just on people in general, they will blur out the eyes and the faces. But there's something about seeing the face of somebody in the last throes of their breath, that it's okay for a Black face to be seen. And there's something about violence on the Black body being a type of what I think they call a porn. There's a particular phrase for it.
Trauma porn.
Trauma porn. And I think if we're going to see inequality, who wants to see violence, equal violence on anybody, particularly if it's colonial, if it's capitalist, if it's capitalist driven? Nobody wants to see it, full stop. But I think because there's been such an onslaught of violence, and the way that, okay, let me quickly backtrack. Hopefully I don't take up too much time with this, but I'm literally just making an attempt to answer this question, okay? I believe that Britain is the brain of the beast and America is the belly of the beast, okay? And because we see so much happening, so much of this level of violence and oppression, when we know that it was built on a slave trade that exploded exponentially when Africans were enslaved, and all of the narratives that had to go in place to put in place to hold it to be something that's considered okay or legal or divinely ordained by God. You know, these are all of the challenges, the narratives that we have to challenge. And this is why I think the pushback in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement, for example, has to be of equal measure to how much the assault on the Black body, on Black life and on Black culture and on Black existence, it has to be an equal amount of pressure to push back. Am I making sense to people? Please tell me I'm making sense. Okay. Because I think
I'm just very conscious of time.
I'm going to stop now. I will stop now. All lives, obviously, they do matter, but it doesn't seem that way. It doesn't appear that way. So the statement has to come about. It's a 3-word story. There's a whole bunch behind it. That iceberg that you were talking about, it's a 3-word story. And so there has to be something behind that story for it to exist. That's as much as I can tell you, Les.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Zena. I appreciate that. Yeah, before I hand it over to MariaM to end the evening, because I'm very conscious that we've kept you here for a while. It's 9 o'clock here in London. And yes, I just want to thank our sponsors, the Literary Consultancy, TLC, Kate, Somali Arts and Culture, Mogol, and Exiled Writers Inc. This event was organized by Exiled Writers Inc. And you can find out more information about us on exiledwritersinc.co.uk. And yeah, let's carry on the conversation online and face-to-face. MariaM, thank you.
Thank you. So conscious of time, so I'll just do one song. And this song simply says, "Grow with me." And so I feel like it's quite apt for this kind of conversation. Really, we're inviting all you guys who've tuned in today to grow with us, you know, on this journey, challenge yourselves, challenge other people, so that we can really kind of get to the, you know, the root of the issue, and also just really, again, make all lives matter, really and truly, by supporting Black lives that are, or whoever is in the public eye at the time that needs our support as people. So yeah, so this is this is Grow. So come on, grow with me. Come on, grow with me. Don't you change your mind. just grow with me. I said, come on, grow with me. Come on, grow with me. Don't you change mine. Just grow with me. I said, come on, grow with me. Come on, grow with me. Don't you change mine. Just grow with me. Come on, grow with me. Come on, grow with me. Don't you change your mind. Just grow with me. Come on, grow with me. Come on, grow with me. Don't change your mind. Just grow with me. Oh, don't you change your mind. Just grow with me. Don't you change your mind. Just grow with me. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who performed this evening. Let's all unmute ourselves and do a collective clap for everyone that joined and performed tonight.
And thank you, Fatima, for being so wonderful host.
Thank you. That was amazing.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to the poets and performers.
Thank you, everybody.
Danielle, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fatima.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Amazing.
Thank you. I learned a lot.
Good. It's good to hear.
Beautiful singing.
Beautiful, yeah.
Fantastic.
Zena as well. Yeah, fantastic poems, guys. Amazing poetry.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Stuff.
That's amazing.
Amazing.
Very touching.
It's like when you're